Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm glad to have you here. Now, at The Power of Money, we are interested in three things happening. First, we want you to get the necessary education so that you and your family can make the decisions that will impact positively on you in your financial life. The second thing is that you be empowered to prosper. I only want the best for you. And you can only get that if you have education and then the drive to make it happen. And the third thing that is so important to me is that you recognize that life is more than a journey and that you be energized so that you can begin to participate in the truly joyous experience of living. So, here's to empowerment, here's to education, and here's to energy. I'm Michelle Graves, your host, Power of Money, and here we go. And here we go, and it is indeed a pleasure for me to welcome all of you into my world. For the next hour, I've got a remarkable show on this hour, and you don't want to miss it. I have as my guest Commander Robert Middleton, National Commanding Officer, U.S. Marine Corps alum, and he is going to be sharing with me insights and observations about the African American presence in the U.S. military, going back to the Civil War. And he's in a key position strategically to know and to be able to talk and articulate about many of the concerns that are facing them today as military men and women. And so it is indeed an honor and a pleasure for me to invite him to be a part of my show. I interviewed him a week ago on my radio show, I believe, and the response was so overwhelming with his interview that I invited him to come back immediately to the television show, so we'd have more time to talk about some of the subjects that we addressed on the radio show. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to this remarkable giant of a man. In America's story, a black man, U.S. Marine Corps, Leathernecks, Commanding Officer, Commander Robert Middleton. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mrs. Graves. It is an honor and a tremendous privilege to be with you on this morning.
I appreciate your willingness to give me additional time to let you speak and to share observations about the African American in the military then and now, and hopefully begin to get a footprint as to where we're heading. If you don't mind, just for the benefit of my viewers, could you introduce yourself to them, because we're excited.
Well, of course, I am the commanding officer of the Montford Point Marines of America, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization headquartered in Detroit, Michigan. We were a nationwide organization comprised of the nation's first Black United States Marines who were inducted into the Marine Corps for the first time in 167 years in 1942. I myself am a decorated combat veteran who served in the Republic of Vietnam. As a non-commissioned officer, I was assigned to the Fort Air Command as a communications specialist, where I coordinated aerial to ground combat missions in collaboration with ranking military officers and pilots. And I serve currently I am retired. I serve on a number of corporate boards of directors where I provide technical assistance to their officers and directors. And of course, I'm retired, happily retired. And I think I do more work now than what I ever have.
I bet you do.
Yes, and so I owned and operated two consulting firms that are specialized in marketing and management, procurement and financing for commercial businesses, real estate development, and in the construction industry. My background stems from many stages of life experience that ranges from abject childhood poverty to combating the battlefields of Vietnam, homelessness, and corporate executive leadership, and ministry as an ordained elder.
That's awesome.
In the church, where I oversee the prison ministry and the veterans ministry outreach programs.
What an amazing, amazing, amazing dossier of accomplishments and achievements in your lifetime, and you still are active and busy.
Well, if Darwin's theory holds true of evolution, I should be growing about 4 extra arms and a dorsal fin long about now.
Oh my God.
So is that busy enough?
I guess, let me know when the fin shows up. Just let me know when that happens. Please call and tell me I officially have a fin so I can get the news people on it. That'll be a hit on social media for sure. What an awesome story. So your involvement, now this Marine involvement came to the attention of our former President, Barack Obama. Could you tell me about that?
Absolutely. In 2012, President Barack Obama and the 112th United States Congress came together and passed legislation to award the Congressional Gold Medal to America's first Black United States Marines of World War II. And I had the honor and the privilege of serving as a liaison with the Pentagon to arrange for their travel and lodging to and from Washington, D.C. And at that time, there were approximately 579 remaining Montford Point Marines at that time.
579. I bet that was exciting.
Oh yes, it was quite an event. It was all over of course, just about every major news channel and newspaper carried that story nationwide.
That's awesome. And how did the men themselves feel about such an honor?
Oh my goodness. Many of them, I will say a number of them, came from their sick beds, and some of them even released themselves from hospice to be at that ceremony.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So long overdue. So long overdue.
Indeed.
Well, that happened, and what are you all doing now?
Well, currently we are headquartered, we're nationwide, but we're headquartered in Detroit, Michigan, where we, of course, as a nonprofit 501c3, we assist returning veterans, and we serve as navigators to help them navigate the healthcare system, eligible benefits that they may be entitled to. We mentor veterans in coping with PTSD.
Is that a real major problem? Not to interrupt you, but the PTS, post-traumatic stress syndrome that we're hearing more and more about, how real of a problem is that for our returning veterans?
Well, it is quite a problem. I believe I've seen a survey that said as many as 31% of returning veterans are,
Suffer from this,
yes, suffer from PTSD.
from their experiences in war.
Absolutely. I myself suffered also from PTSD.
Did treatment help?
Oh yes, absolutely. You learn coping skills and various different mechanisms to control anxiety and depression.
I can't even imagine, because the reality is that when an individual signs on for military, he or she is lock, stock, and barrel owned by the United States government. Correct?
That's correct. As a matter of fact, when we were at the induction station and raised our right hand, said the oath to the United States of America, basically what we were doing, essentially assigning a blank check on behalf of the United States of America to serve all enemies, foreign and domestic, up to and including death as the risk.
My God. So your commitment is to uphold the Constitution?
Absolutely. Yes. As a matter of fact, in all of our meetings that we have, we start out with the preamble of the Constitution.
Oh my goodness. That is so powerful. So essentially the military is not political. It's about upholding the Constitution.
Yes, that is very correct.
Okay, that's important. That's so important.
It's the premise of everything that we do, and to uphold our democracy.
Yes, for which we as Americans, and certainly me personally, am forever indebted, because we are a free nation, and it is because of the presence of this war horse. I have to call it what it is. You guys are war horses. The fact that you are trained to protect and uphold the promises that were put in place by our founding fathers in this country.
Yeah, that's a great responsibility. As you well know, the United States Marine Corps is one of the most elite fighting forces in the world.
That's my understanding.
And it is a great challenge. And everyone cannot be a United States Marine.
Why is that so? Because of the rigors and the discipline?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, some of the most rigorous training that you can go through, and it produces discipline and trains you to have skills that ordinarily are not, taught by other organizations.
Right, I understand. So your organization, while doing service to all of the branches of the military, Air Force, Army, etc., are you all Marine Corps people?
Well, no. As a matter of fact, the Montford Point Marines of America organization caters to all the branches of military service.
Okay.
Yes, including the reserves.
Okay.
And civilians as well may also be members.
Civilians as well. So what do you provide civilians?
Well, basically, we allow them to become as members, to share in the experience of upholding and preserving the rare history of the Montford Point Marines through events and things like that.
Okay, I got it. Well, it seems to me, and how long has this organization been in existence?
Since 1991, it was founded by our current day President Emeritus, Mr. Henry L. Ball, who was the 5th Black United States Marine to
He,
be inducted into the Marine Corps. Yes.
my God, so he did World War II?
Yes,
Oh my
absolutely.
gosh, and he's still alive.
He is still alive. I
And
just talked to him
frisky,
yesterday.
probably.
He is my neighbor,
Oh my
150
God.
blocks away.
Oh my God. Is he still a frisky guy? I bet he.
I tell you, at 97 years old, he
Woo!
still straight as an arrow.
Ah!
He ambulates with a cane these days.
Oh my
But
goodness.
he is pedigree when it comes to the United States Marine Corps.
That is such an awesome thing. It really is. In my research in preparing to talk about the whole issue of military, my daughter is Air Force, and she is, of course, gone on with her life. But I will tell you that at certain levels, I really wish we had the draft back. And I say this because there are things that young people today, because they did not have to go into military, don't know. The profound discipline that is a requirement, and team playing, which is you look after each other. And I just, and the fact that we have shifted to an all-volunteer doesn't take it away, but I will tell you that she was a very artsy person. Pre-military, when I found out that she had enlisted, I said, they're going to court-martial that girl because this girl doesn't even want to get up out of the bed. But everything changed. Everything changed. I watched how their training transforms these young people into. I can't even explain how it happens, but I will say to you that it's worthy of consideration. I know nobody likes the thought of drafting young people, but when we look at where we are today, and so many of our young people just don't have a clue. And I'm not speaking ill of young people, I'm just saying to you that I came out of a time where the draft was real. The draft was real, you had to sign up, and if your number was called, you went, unless you were able to get some kind of an exemption, but basically you had to go. So as I was doing this research and I was looking at the history of African Americans going all the way back to the American Revolution, where we have been active participants in warring for the freedoms that we take for granted today. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, since the founding of the nation, our black men have always been subject to the issue of racism, discrimination, and segregation. When we go back to the Civil War, we'll find that black soldiers were in segregated units. For example, the 102nd United States Colored Troops of the Civil War. They were known as the 102nd United States Colored Infantry. They were an African American regiment of the Union Army during the American Civil War, and the unit was basically organized as the first Michigan Colored Volunteer Infantry Regiment.
Out of Michigan?
Out of Michigan. And
wow.
They trained right down the street from where I live.
Did they?
At the Duffield Farm, absolutely.
Okay.
And many of those soldiers that died in the Civil War are buried at the Elmwood Cemetery, which is a half block away from Duffield School.
My goodness.
I am the chairman of the Detroit Historic Civil War Society, and every year on November the 11th, we celebrate the Veterans Day observance ceremony at the historic Elmwood Cemetery, where those men are interred in Section S, and I've been doing that for over a decade now.
My goodness. where they get their respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are also Native Americans buried there as well.
Really?
Mhm.
Oh, that is good. I think that is good. I really do. So we have that going on. We know, I was reading, I think it was 440,000 African American men fought in that war, that Civil War. That was a large number of people, men, who were, and for most part, emancipated, self-emancipated slaves that fought for this country in battle. But you said it was a segregated unit.
That's correct. In fact, many of them were fought in segregated units all the way up until 1949, when President Harry Truman integrated the military services. But it wasn't always that way.
So prior to 1949, black men fought wars, shed blood,
Yes.
as segregated fighting units.
Absolutely.
Outrageous.
Let me share with you a couple of those units that existed at that time. The Seminole Negro Indian Scouts of the Civil War. They were known as the Seminole Negro Indian Scouts. They were employed by the United States Army from 1870 to 1914. And they were direct descendants of freed men and Indians who collectively formed the Seminole Indian tribe out of Florida. Of course, they were forced to flee from white settlers across the United States. After white settlers were trying to run them off their property and off their lands. And it was known as the Trail of Tears.
Right.
Which was a path all the way into Oklahoma, Texas, and as far down as Nacimiento, Mexico. So they played a major role in the American Indian Wars in the 1870s, and they basically were assigned to protect the western frontier. When the United States Army was not available, they're the ones who kept the frontiers safe.
But yet and still, am I hearing you right? Yet and still, they were part of the Trail of Tears?
Absolutely.
Viewers, let me just zoom in for a minute, please. Viewers, if you're not familiar with the Trail of Tears, what the U.S. government did to the American Indians all over the United States, if you can imagine, tribes, all of them were forced to vacate their property. It was an eviction, and forced to resettle into another part of the country as a response to government mandate. If you are not familiar with that, start by Googling, and then go to Wikipedia, and then read some of the books. It'll have you in tears. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And a number of those Seminole Negro Indian Scouts received the Medal of Honor, and they're now buried in the Seminole Negro Indian Scout Cemetery in Brackettville, Texas.
Brackettville, Texas.
Brackettville, Texas, yes. Including such men such as Pompey Factor, Adam Payne, and John Ward, whose real name was Warrior, but they could not pronounce his name correctly. But they are buried there. John Warrior happens to be the great-grandfather of one of our members of the Montford Point Marines.
Really?
His name is Warrior as well.
Last name is Warrior.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And together, we were in attendance back in January at the 150-year observance of the Seminole Indian Scout Scouts in the inaugural celebration of the International Native American Tribes in the United States and Mexico.
My words. I have to remember that Indians were in Mexico as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It was their country to begin with.
Right.
Yeah. It's no way, I tell you, Commander, when we begin to unfold this whole history and begin to look at what has occurred, all I can say is what you're doing is just so, it's just awesome. It is. So we move from the segregated fighting forces up until Harry Truman in 1949. And what precipitated his decision to desegregate the fighting forces?
Yeah.
I mean, how did that come about?
Well, there was such outrage and so much contention, that it necessitated that integration take place. He passed an executive order 9901 in 1949, which essentially abolished segregation in the military services.
Jeez. Finally. Well, Harry Truman was known for common sense. I mean, that's that's what he was known for, which is common sense. And to think that black troops went to Europe as segregated troops
That's right.
in World War II, Marine Corps as well,
Yes.
same training. Was it a separate training protocol?
Yeah, pretty much. They were segregated in training, and they were also segregated in their wartime assignments. For example, the Red Ball Express, which was a famed truck convoy system, consisted mainly of our African American troops, and they supplied the Allied forces during World War II in Europe. After the storming the beaches during D-Day in Normandy
Yes.
in 1944. So they, provided the logistical support to the Allied forces in Europe, which America may have been doomed to lose the war to Germany without them. Because all the railroad systems that would have transported that, the ammunitions and so forth, and other logistical materials were bombed to prevent Germany from being able to transport goods to to their installations.
Right,
as well.
right. That had to have been a very dangerous job. Very dangerous. Had to have been. The Germans were brutal.
Yes, they were.
Their weaponry was incredible. I mean, I'm a student of history, and World War II was off the chart.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a wonder we're not all speaking German. I'm not kidding you, Commander.
Well, Michelle, we were only a hop, skip, and a jump from speaking in Deutsch. To the tune of Germany. Right.
Yeah. When you look at that country on a map, and you look at what they were able to do, you got to respect those people. I mean, there is something about Germans, of course, in history going back to Latin, the Romans called them Germanus, and absolutely just felt that they were of a pig nature. That's what they said, Germanus. And terrifying population, terrifying in terms of discipline and fierceness, just terrifying. But our men played that role in World War II. Did any of them actually engage in fighting? I know that we have the Tuskegee Airmen, and they fought in World War II.
Absolutely. The Tuskegee Airmen.
As a separate fighting unit.
Yes, they were
Jeez.
a unit as well. And they flew P 51s.
Okay,
They piloted those planes as combat pilots, and they basically they strafed combat positions in the war. They also flew as protection to bombers going to and from enemy targets and back to
Okay.
base. And many of those bombers refused to fly unless a red tail was with it. They were that good.
oh my goodness.
Yes, they didn't want to go on a mission without the red tails being with them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
One of those men who was shot down as a pilot was my close friend, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Jefferson, who was also a neighbor of mine here in Detroit, Michigan.
Well, you all just, all of you move in together.
Attend ceremony.
Like all of you all live together. Oh my gosh. I just think that is so neat. I like that. So you get to look at history. Yeah.
The Tuskegee Airmen also were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, just as the Montford Point Marines were. So,
Jeez. Fighting men.
probably, yes.
Fighting men. Fighting men. So we see that coming out of war, and I just have to be open with you, Commander, when they came back home from World War II, their experience as African Americans was not the same as white soldiers.
No, as a matter of fact, in their military experience, many of them were passed over for promotions in rank and other upwardly mobile opportunities. They were not allowed to participate in the parade after the celebration of the end of the war in New York.
They were not allowed to participate in the parade?
No, ma'am.
Are you kidding me? Commander, who makes those kind of decisions? Don't tell me people sit in a closed, dark room and say, who made those kind of decisions? Was that executive level, the president?
Absolutely. Yep. From top levels on down. Yep.
We were willing to die. These black men and women were willing to die, conscripted,
That's right.
and could not march down. I'm done.
No.
I'm done. Help me.
And that was the order of the day.
Well, you know what?
Like we fought two battles, one abroad and one at home.
So you come back home with all of these skill sets, discipline, heat of battle, things done in an orderly way, and you come back to your home and you find, number one, you cannot get a home under the GI Bill because you're excluded from that consideration. Then you cannot take advantage of additional higher education that was afforded to your white comrades to allow them to go to Harvard and all these higher learning schools. So you found yourself relegated to the bottom of the pile, having families to take care of.
That's correct. Yes.
Huh.
So, yeah, so many of them were even, they were passed over for not only promotions, but also the meritorious awards that you earn on the battlefield. They were promised those awards.
Yes.
And often they never got those when they returned home.
So what, given this history, and I mean, my goodness gracious, I've done a lot of research, and it has broken my heart because my father served in the Navy, in the Pacific, and he would not talk about it. He would not talk about it, period. He said that his treatment was something he just never wanted to talk about. And so, I mean, we didn't have the benefit of a GI Bill. We didn't have the benefit of higher education. And his medals and stuff, he didn't even want us to look at them. I mean, just shameful. Absolutely shameful.
There was
So,
also discrimination in housing.
yeah,
That was before the Equal Opportunities
right,
in Housing Act.
right. Well, as we are, and of course we know about Korea, which was the unspoken war, and then Vietnam. And of course, I'm very, very familiar with Vietnam because, frankly, our entire neighborhood was decimated. Every guy that was drafted came back home in a box. I'm just telling you. It was just unbelievable what began to happen in our communities
That's correct.
with Vietnam. And Vietnam was different because it seemed as if there was so much conflict at home. And like our men had anything to do with getting drafted. I mean, I remember this also. Well, I'm talking about some handsome, vibrant black men that got drafted to Vietnam, and 9 months later they come home in a box. That was very hard. And it just didn't seem, we, as a community, we didn't want to talk about it, but it felt so bad. It just felt bad. So were they able to integrate? Because I know a lot of them came home with drug addiction, and I'm not judging, because based on what I understand you all saw over there, it's a wonder all of you all were not on some form of medication, including marijuana and everything else. It's horrible to be in a foreign country and killing people and getting killed.
Yes. And it was called self-medication. Our troops self-medicated quite frequently on the battlefield and off the battlefield. And of course, after they got home, many of them were addicted to opium, heroin, cocaine, that type of thing.
To deal with the shock and the
Their
pain.
depression. Major
That-
depressive disorder.
Okay.
And PTSD. Yeah.
Just depression.
Yes. Until they got the help that they needed.
Do you feel that as we are today with so many of our post-Vietnam African American men still struggling, are they getting the help they need? Do you feel?
Most of them, I would say, are, and some of them not. Some of them feel that, just like I felt, for many years, that was a wound that I did not want to treat after it had a scab. I felt that me seeking treatment would pull the scab off the wound, and who was going to take care of that?
Oh.
Yeah, so I went for a couple of decades before I actually sought the assistance in the healthcare system.
So would this have anything to do with your spiritual development when you realized that you were going to have to reach out to a higher power to heal your soul?
Well, yes, and I'm glad that I had that relationship with God. Just like you were saying, that at that time, they were American GIs were being shipped home in boxes and getting body bags at that time on a regular basis every week, and we would all watch that on national TV. And that just happened to be about the time that I was going in the military service. My mother was asking me why did I want to join the Marine Corps?
Yep.
All the military services.
All the branches.
No, you're going to the front lines.
Yep.
Yeah, they're going to try to kill you. Yeah, but but it was when I was in infantry training that I actually inquired of God, would I come back as one of those boxes or bodies in green body bags? I inquired of the Lord then that would I live or would I die? And I referred to him because I didn't really know him for myself. I called him God of my mother.
Okay, God of your mother. That'll work.
God of my mother. am I going to live or am I going to die? And this still small voice came to me and said, well, because you've asked me that question, you shall live and not die. And I said,
Oh,
well, God, I said, well, how will I know it's you talking to me? And he said, well, would you require a sign? I said, yes. Show me the same sign that you showed my mother when she was young and was faced with the possibility of death. Show me a red rose. The very last week was Sunday, before we left the rifle range at Camp Pendleton. I went to the outdoor chapel to worship, and there was that red rose sitting in the face.
ooh,
There
ooh,
on the pulpit with the priest.
ooh. How'd that make you
I had
feel?
a long-term relationship,
Ooh,
yes, with God, that I was able to call on Him in a time of need. He answered my prayer.
oh, yes, he did. Look at you today.
Amen.
Look at you today. You stand tall. You stand tall.
Only by the grace of God.
So tell me, what caused you to go into ministry? And I would be remiss, listeners, viewers, this man took 150 of his congregants to South Africa last year to visit that country. Unheard of. You want to talk about that? I was so moved by that.
Yes, we took members of our congregation to Cape Town, South Africa, where we have churches over there that we have founded, and our pastor had founded, the bishop. And we went with him over there to support them. So it was quite an experience. I've never been to the great continent of
Oh,
America,
it's something.
and I'll never be the same.
I'm sure. What was the most impressive experience you had over there?
The interaction with the people, especially our tour guide, who cried when she talked about how she and her family were affected by apartheid. And she broke down while she was on the tour bus as we were going from point to point. And that was just like Jim Crow in America.
Yes, yes, yes. And it would be worthy if America knew the outcome, because apartheid had to go.
Yes.
Apartheid had to go. It did. You cannot keep people away from freedom. You can't. You can't do it.
You know, they have a 28% unemployment rate, but the income per capita is some of the highest in the world.
So how do you, does that mean everybody's underground self-employed? I mean,
Well, you have the wealthy,
yes.
live in certain sections, of town and out on the mountainsides, and then you have, the shanty houses along the way as well. So they are a contrast to each other.
So what do you think, and that's another conversation, but why do you think that's the case in that country?
Well, number one, after apartheid, many of them were never, it's just like blacks in the United States, after so many years of oppression, they were not afforded the opportunities that others were afforded in terms of, job, the acquisition of jobs and employment, and going into business. A lot of opportunities they did not have. And as a result, many of them are not trained for the new jobs that are available.
Right, the technology.
Exactly.
That is a global challenge,
It is.
which is how do you embrace the technology and make sure our people are prepared, especially our young people, particularly our young people.
They need job training over there big time.
I know they do.
just like we do in America.
I know. That's one of the things that I see happening, which is the leveling of the playing field globally. Everyone, it doesn't matter who you are, humans have basic needs. They want food, clothing, shelter. They need jobs, or they need to be able to create their own jobs as self-employed people. They want to raise good children. They want to have happy lives. I think that's a common thread with humans everywhere. And of course, with social media and television, I mean the real serious television today, you see people from all over the world. I mean, in real time, doing interesting things.
Yes.
Now, the beautiful thing about South Africa is the Zulu nation, they already had tribal connections, which meant that as a unit, as a community, they had a much higher chance of survival than we do over here, because we don't have community.
Right.
I mean, our tribes are so mongrelized that we don't even know who we are and where we came from. We can say that we are an African people, but we don't know what our tribal roots look like.
With that, which is so sad. Yeah.
My words. I tell folks, when you do that ancestry and you see that, you know, as an African American, you may have 12 different groups, which in Africa is unheard of. Your tribe is your tribe.
Right. What our people must remember is many of us came from royalty.
Absolutely.
And prior to coming to the United States, we don't know whose descendants we actually are.
No.
Tribal kings and queens.
Right.
And yeah, we really must know where we came from so that we can determine where we're going to and how we're going to get there.
Well, I think that
Many of us suffer from low self-esteem because we don't know who we are.
that is so real. That is one of the horrors of slavery, where we were separated from our roots and forced to survive the best way we knew how. Mm-hmm. And it has taken a real toll. It has made it very difficult for us to venerate greatness like yourself. I mean, to be candid with you, we need thousands of men like yourself, thousands, to do the work that has to be done for the generation to come, to provide the level of motivation and education and leadership. We need thousands of men that look like you, Commander, that have that infrastructure, that development, that know what discipline looks like, knows the rewards, and are spiritually rooted. Spiritually. We cannot get there without a spiritual foundation.
That's correct. And I attribute my all in all to the Almighty God.
I know you do.
That He has provided for me all of these years and preserved me, like David said in the Bible. David was the warrior on the battlefield and said, Lord, unless you preserve me,
lest you preserve me.
I have perished a long time ago.
So as we look at where we are now, having the backdrop of the historical, and you've now gone back to the motherland and seen how important it is, even though they're poor, they still have roots. They still have roots. They have a country. So where do we go? Where do we go as African Americans?
We need to find sense of community. We need to rediscover that.
Okay. How do we do that?
Our community is dispersed. We don't really have a cohesive community unless there is an incident where we all come together for a common cause and begin to protest social injustice to our people. That brings us together.
It's a shared experience.
Yes, yes.
I mean, for real. As a mother, I have a son, and growing up, he went to a private white school, very prestigious, but it didn't matter because I knew he could be stopped, he could be frisked arbitrarily, and his life could flip. So I was always, even to date, he's not a young man, but he's still, like I told him, you can be stopped and your world will change. And so that's a concern.
Michelle, I have run across a number of black men who said they've never had run into problems with racism. And I'm like, well, what part of the country?
Where are you from?
But, I said, listen, they're far and few and in between, but I have run into them. And I told them,
That have never,
brother, you're only one traffic stop from knowing that you're black. You
I'm
find
just,
out that racism really exists. You're only one traffic stop.
oh my gosh, Commander, it's so real because I had an encounter 5 years ago, and it changed my world. It really did. But, no, it did. They mistook me at that time for an African-American man. And when they pulled me over, and I wasn't driving fast, I don't break the law, but it was way 2 in the morning, and I was in another state, and it got real bizarre, and I had an epiphany, and I said to myself, this has got to stop. This has got to stop. This has got to stop. And so when we look at what's happening today, I share with my white friends, this is a 400-year story. Okay, going back to the men that wore hoods, and prior to them, the enforcers. I'm like, this is a story. But for the sake of our country, and for the great work of our men and women who fought in these wars, we must do better.
Absolutely.
We must do better. You cannot leave this earth having deposited, Commander, your life into this country. Your life into this country, and have this still going on. This cannot be. I'm just firm about it. This just can't, no. No. It really can't.
I think America as a whole is coming to a point where enough is enough.
I think you're right. Can you please, in the remaining time, because we're done, I want you to give your phone number, please, if anyone is interested in, because I know you represent programs for veterans that can get jobs and start their own businesses, and that's going to be for another interview, but can you please give us a phone number?
I certainly can. My cell phone number, I can be contacted, is from 9 to 5 daily. It's 313-300-0165.
Could you say it again?
That is 313, area code 313-300-0165.
Okay, for those of you that are viewing this show, and it's going to be broadcast, as you know, all throughout the United States, we're available overseas on YouTube. If you're a veteran and you need help getting a business going, getting counseling, getting support, I, without hesitation, recommend that you contact Commander Robert Middleton and engage yourself in the conversation called I am worthy of greatness, that I too want to be on the track to success. And so on today's segment of The Power of Money, I want to thank everyone for being a part of this remarkable interview with this amazing man of greatness. I call him greatness because you got to see his dossier. It's just overpowering. But the fact that he did this under great duress, discrimination, all the above. U.S. Marine Corps. one of their great men. So I thank you for being a part, and I want to close by saying one thing, and that is that our veterans, anybody that's in the military, is worthy of respect. Everything they lost for us. The people that they became, the stress, all the things that happened to them, they did it for the preservation of our country and our Constitution. Do not allow anybody to tell you otherwise. And African American men were right front and center in the arena of fighting for the rights that we freely enjoy in this country. I say that from my heart. I'm not backing it down. You need to know this, and don't ever let anyone tell you that a veteran is a loser. Don't ever let anybody tell you that without you telling them you're a loser. I'm Michelle Graves. Thank you for being a part of my show today, and God bless you so much. And thank you, Mr. Middleton, if you can hear me. I appreciate you so much. You take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Graves. Thank
surely.
you for allowing me to have this time.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Bye-bye.